If you want to create your own business in Japan but don't know how to start, this video is for you. So as you know, if you want to come live in Japan and stay in Japan for the long term, you have several options. In fact, you have over 7 different categories of visas that you can apply for if you want to live in Japan and grow your life and your career. You have the highly skilled professional visa, the working visa, the general visa, the specified visa, the startup visa, and the diplomatic and official visas as well. So, for example, any job or any work contract that you get for any companies in Japan are going to fall under the working visa categories, and all your family visas or spouse visas will fall under the general category as well. But you're likely watching this video because you're interested in one of these categories above all. And so if that's you, then stay tuned, because over the next 4 videos in this series, I'll be sharing with you everything you need to know about the startup visa in Japan, so that by the end of this series, or hopefully even before then, you'll be ready and armed with all the knowledge necessary to take the first few steps towards making your dream of coming to live and work in Japan a reality. So having said that, let's begin. So over the past few years, I've been contacted by a number of people over and over again, asking always similar questions. I would love to go to Japan to create my own business. I would also want to live in Japan and be an entrepreneur in Japan and all these things, but I don't know how to start. I don't know what to do. I don't know what my business should be. If that's the case, then applying for things like the business manager visa are things that are already a little bit too far beyond your reach. Because in order to apply successfully for this visa, you need a business plan, you need capital, and a whole other array of requirements that tend to be very difficult to acquire. And so before you do all that, and before you start thinking about getting your capital and all these things in order, you first have to understand what your business in Japan is going to be. And that's where the startup visa comes into play. You see, in a few words, this visa actually allows business owners and entrepreneurs to come to Japan and have the opportunity to create their businesses from the ground up, from within the country, in a much easier and more streamlined way than applying directly for a business manager visa, for example. But I'll explain how all that works in just 1 second, so bear with me. So of course, you can imagine that by supporting all these startups and new entrepreneurs that are coming into the country from abroad, Japan is trying to re-innovate and reignite its own economy by bringing in fresh businesses and fresh ideas in sectors like technology, healthcare, sustainability, and finance. And I personally have a few acquaintances that have had a lot of success with these programs to create their businesses in Japan, all the way from farming to high-end real estate. So you can see that these are programs that Japan is actually focusing lots of resources into, and hopefully trying to grow it into the future as well. Now, there's one thing that you have to keep in mind, and that's that all these entrepreneurs and startups that are coming into the country are bringing not only their businesses or their prospective businesses, but are also bringing their connections, their knowledge, and their experience into the Japanese market. And so in a way, Japan actually needs you, people like you and me, to help them revitalize and reignite the economy and the market in the country. But in order for you to do that successfully, you have to package your value the right way. And that's exactly what we'll be covering in the second video in this series, so make sure you don't miss it. It'll be out in just a couple of days, and I'll be sharing with you everything you need to know in order to successfully navigate the application process. Remember that one of the most important things in Japan is presenting things the right way, so this is a video you're not going to want to miss. Now, I mentioned just a few moments ago that the startup visa is actually a much simpler and streamlined way of coming to live and work in Japan if you compare it, for example, with the business manager visa. And that's because the business manager visa actually has a very high set of requirements. You need at least 5 million yen in capital, you need to have employees, and you need to have an actual office space in the country. But the startup visa actually allows you to come work and live in Japan without having to climb over those hurdles that might be quite difficult for many of us. So it's actually going to allow you to come into the country and start getting everything together from scratch, so that you can get your business off the ground without having to worry so much about the financial constraints, or the fact that you have to rent an office, or that you have to start looking for employees to hire. And this, of course, gives you a little bit of a head start and makes it a lot easier for you to focus on the daily operations of your growing business. And another very important point that I'll get into a little bit later in the video as well is that you will not be doing this alone, because you'll also be getting lots of support from your local governments. This means that you will not only get the opportunity to come to your target country to create your business from zero, to work on your business from the ground up and create your business proposal from scratch, but you will also be receiving hands-on guidance from the local government as well, including helping you how to navigate all the licensing, lots of networking events throughout the year, and multiple business programs targeted specifically towards foreigners so that they can start their businesses smoothly. Now, just to be clear, I'm in no way affiliated or related to these programs, but you can see how Japan is actually offering all these great opportunities to many entrepreneurs, and in the same way are using this to cultivate and grow their local economies as well. And it's actually helping them benefit multiple sectors like real estate, professional services, and many more. And of course, bringing all these international businesses into the country helps benefit international relationships and helps enhance Japan's position in the global market as well. Now, while Tokyo is unsurprisingly one of the main targets for many of these business owners and entrepreneurs, there's other places like Osaka, Kyoto, and Fukuoka, which are also taking great advantage of the startup program to bring international businesses into these areas and stimulate the local market. However, if you're interested in creating your business in other areas in Japan, then you're in luck, because there are some very interesting changes coming to the Startup Visa program in 2025 that might allow you to do just that. And I'll be going into full detail on this in one of the upcoming videos as well. So once again, make sure you subscribe and turn on notifications to make sure that you don't miss it when it comes out. Now, just to be clear, like I said before, I'm not affiliated with the startup program. I don't have a course to sell. I don't have any merch. I don't have anything to sell you. I'm just sharing what I consider to be very valuable and important information with those who might need it. And so if that's you, then I really appreciate the support. So make sure you like the video and share it with anyone you can. But now let's talk about how this visa actually works. So in principle, the startup visa is going to allow you to come into the country for a relatively long period of time, whether it be 6 months or 1 year, so that you can get everything in order, all the preliminary preparations of your business, so that you can then take it off the ground from within Japan. And like I said before, unlike the business manager visa, in this case you're actually given the time to create your business plan, lay the foundations of your business, even before you have to start worrying about registering your company, hiring employees, getting capital, and all those other things. So let me say this once again, if you're a beginner and you'd like to come to Japan to create your own business, then this is the visa for you. However, if you're an entrepreneur who makes sufficient progress or who can show the government that you can actually have a profitable business in Japan, then you can also apply for a further extension of your startup visa or even apply for a business manager visa. And remember, this is going to be your main objective for the time being. You want to show the government that your startup has enough potential to turn you into a full-blown business owner. And one of the advantages of doing it this way is that you're actually allowed and even encouraged to come to Japan and get your business off the ground from within. Whereas doing it the other way means that you already need to have a business that's profitable, that has an office, that has employees, and that is a registered company, whether that's within Japan or abroad. So once again, if you're a beginner and would like to start taking your first steps into entrepreneurship in Japan, this is the visa for you. Now, remember that, like I mentioned earlier, as of the time of this recording, you're still only allowed to apply for your startup visa in a few select cities around the country, but that's all going to change very soon. And I'll be going over all the details in the third video in this series, where I'll be sharing with you all the benefits and most important tips to keep in mind for your startup visa. So if you don't want to miss it, make sure you stick around. Now, the startup visa not only allows you to stay and live in Japan while you cultivate your career and your future, but it also gives you an abundance of networking events and resources that will actually help you achieve those objectives. This means that even if you are fairly inexperienced or completely inexperienced in the matter of entrepreneurship, you will not have to navigate it alone. Now, like I've mentioned in other videos before, many cities in Japan actually have shared office spaces, co-working hubs, and even rental spaces and living spaces that can help entrepreneurs have a physical presence in Japan. And many times these properties are actually financed by other companies, helping entrepreneurs like yourself keep your costs as low as possible. Now, another very important and useful tool that you'll have in your favor is that you'll always have regular meetings with the local authorities and the local governments to ensure that everything is going according to plan. And they'll actually guide you and help you stay on the right path so that you can eventually apply for higher level visas. Now, the networking events that I mentioned earlier are actually going to be extremely valuable for you and are actually going to be the thing that's going to bring you to running a full-blown business in the country. Because you'll actually be able to interact with international and local businesses alike, as well as service providers, chain suppliers, and many other services that will actually help you have a more established and solid presence. And this will all help you bring in your first customers as well. They'll also help you navigate all the Japanese business laws, tax regulations, and all the financial requirements that you'll need to understand to be successful in this country. And the best part of all of this is that you can actually use the startup visa period to refine your business model, do all the necessary market research, and actually create and design a business that better suits the Japanese audience. And that's going to make all the difference when it comes to the success and sustainability of your business. But now let's move on to one of the main questions that you must be having. What's the actual difference between the business manager visa and the startup visa in Japan? Well, for one, of course, there's the financial and operational flexibility. Like I mentioned earlier, for the business manager visa, you need to have at least 5 million yen in capital. You need to have a couple of employees in your company, and you need to have a registered company and an actual physical office space in whichever city you're going to be working from. Whereas with the startup visa, honestly, of course, the better your bank account looks, the better it's going to be, but you don't need to have incredible amounts of money in order to get accepted, because it's actually a fairly flexible program to get into. And unlike the business manager visa, you can actually start thinking and deciding what to do with employees and staff members later down the line, once your business model and your business proposal are all on the table. And with this visa, entrepreneurs, of course, can take the time to secure funding, try out different business models, and do market research, whereas with the business manager visa, everything basically has to be set up already and standing from the beginning. Now, another very important difference is the actual application and approval process, because these are actually two very different ways to go about it. In general, like I said before, the entire application process for your startup visa is going to be a lot more streamlined and straightforward. And it's going to be a lot more accessible for many of you who are actually interested in coming and creating your own businesses in Japan. Because the application process is actually going to be reviewed by local governments rather than by Japan's Immigration Bureau. And that means they'll actually be able to give you more tailored and direct information that more directly impacts your business, depending on which city you're going to be located in. Now, even though ultimately you will still need to present your business plan and your business proposal to the government, the startup visa application process requires a lot less paperwork. For obvious reasons, you still don't have a company, you don't have to declare company taxes, you don't have to hand in your employee paperwork and all those other things that you would have to do if you were applying for a business manager visa. And so, like I said before, if you're relatively inexperienced, this would actually be a great first step in your entrepreneurial journey in Japan. And ultimately, because of its simplicity, comparatively speaking, getting approved for a startup visa is going to take a lot less time than getting approved for your business manager visa. So that's also an important point to consider. Now, another extremely important point is the sustainability of your business, because remember, the main point of all of this is that you have to show that your business is sustainable, it's profitable, and that it has enough potential for you to eventually be able to apply for the business manager visa and become a full-blown business manager or business owner in Japan and continue your long-term operations. Meaning that, in theory, you can stay and live and work in Japan for a very long time. Now, another very important and positive point is that through the startup visa, your business will actually gain a lot more credibility, a lot more trust in the local market, and you'll be able to show its viability before you actually make any larger financial commitments, meaning that your business could actually develop a stronger foundation and a better understanding of the market you're actually catering to, ultimately giving you more opportunities to scale, attract investors, and eventually expanding into other areas of the country as well. But remember that none of this is going to be possible if you don't first focus on packaging and presenting your startup in the right way and go through the entire application process in a way that maximizes your chances of success. And that's exactly what we'll be covering in the next video, so don't miss it, and I'll see you over there.